Like I've written a lot of stuff over the years, like on my blog. I mean, like tons of shit about like starting graffiti or whatever, and my dad and this and that and the other. Um, and I don't really, people don't really read that stuff anyway. I mean, probably more like appropriate to talk about it, but you can only talk about a certain amount of stuff anyway. But you can write a lot. Like I've written maybe over the years, it's been like 12 years or something like that. I've written like maybe uh, half a million, maybe half a million words. I don't know, like something ridiculous. A lot of words. And I guess my introduction to say graffiti, because it's something I'm known for or was known for in the past, is was really through my dad, and I've explained that. I've talked about that. I've written a book that kind of talks about it in a way, like it talks about that sort of stuff, but talks about a lot of different things. That's the thing about a book; you can kind of encapsulate it with a lot of different ideas. You can't necessarily get out by, I guess, by talking about it. You can just like, yeah, get a whole bunch of stuff amassed, even though it's only a small book, really. But yeah, my dad, he he had schizophrenia, so really my introduction to sort of street culture really was just through like mental illness and schizophrenia and stuff like that. And so my dad had that issue, and like he had like psychosis, and like he just behaved really strangely, and had those sort of problems. Um, and yeah, then like I said, I tried to outline a bit of that in some books, so I won't go into too much detail or anything like that. But when he showed me the train line to the cross, like there was like, I can't remember, I don't know the street name. It's like down the back of the cross, and you would go to like an outhouse, and the outhouse was where like the mentally ill people went, derelicts, whoever was struggling, they went there. You could play ping pong in there. You could get something to eat. It was like a drop off center, drop in center. Sorry. And near there was like a you could look over to the lines onto the cross, and that's when, like, I mean, it was probably in the early '80s. And my dad pulled me up. He pushed me, he held me up and put me over the side so I could look down at all the lines, and I saw all the graffiti and stuff like that. And I didn't really know what it was, and I'd seen it in Coogee in the promenade, a lot of that breakdance era graffiti, but it was kind of dark and it was a bit of a seedy space, so you didn't really feel welcome there in the promenade, which is gone now at Coogee. And there was bits of graffiti here and there, so you would see stuff, but I probably would have been, I don't know, like 9 or 10, or pretty young, maybe even younger than that. I was pretty young at the time, and my dad would get me out walking from a young age, and we'd just walk everywhere and just wander around like back streets and different dropping, like maybe Matthew Talbot's or some of the nunneries that would give you food. My dad would look through bins and stuff like that and find food and get tins and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, he got me into that sort of thing. So um, in a way, I was always ashamed of my dad, because I was like, oh man, like why does he like look through bins? Why does he do this sort of stuff? It was kind of embarrassing, but overall, I mean, there was times that I didn't see my dad for a really long time because he was too psychotic and too unstable to really to have to see him. Um, and my poor mum, I mean, she had to put up with him, and that's something that I don't really talk about as much. I mean, my mum really, she just got she was crushed, because it's pretty full on. Like, I mean, well, really full on. I mean, and I explain in my book. I said my first memories were like just extreme sort of psychotic violence that I remember, my first ever memories. And I talk about it in the book, and that's that Ram Wicked book. And and I had this sort of out of body experience when I might have been, I don't know, I guess it was as soon as I could remember something. So my first memories of just like a violence, um, And I'm not really like I mean, even though I've done graffiti, I'm not really like a criminal. You know, I mean, I'm not. I mean, graffiti's a crime, but I don't know. Like I guess when I was younger, it was kind of more a criminal thing, but it was sort of like an outlet. And I mean, I guess I was trying to get the world back or something. I don't know, but I was trying to like also sort of find myself in this the kind of society we're in. I don't know, because you know you're walking around and you may be down the back streets of Hillsdale, Mascot. You're walking through Maroubra, down the streets, down Maroubra Junction, um, heading off to wherever, Kingsford, and just wandering around and dropping tags, and you know just on your own, and you know you're only young. You're like maybe 14 years old or whatever, and you know, and you're just trying to sort of find yourself, and it's yeah, I guess, and so I guess if I always bring my dad in these sort of things, and that's because if it wasn't for that kind of introduction, I probably would never have really been interested or really felt like I'd wanted to be around those sort of places, you know, like back streets and alleyways and wandering around in the middle of the night. I mean, I could get out of home and I mean, I didn't really, I mean, my dad wasn't at home and my mum, you know, I could just sneak out the window. I could basically just sneak out and go out all night and go wandering around and yeah, probably not the best way to spend your time, but it was just there was something there was an attraction to that, and I think that's you know that's really my dad's kind of influence. Um, but graffiti then, like later on, became more like a creative thing. Like I mean, I guess I met a lot of guys who seemed aggressive or who were aggressive or whatever, and I realized in the late '80s I was like, oh, you know, I've got to spend my time with people who are creative or who want to be creative. But I wasn't really in the right circles. I was always getting into shit with the people I hung out with, and there was always dramas, and you know it was a lot of stuff going on like that. But eventually, I managed to kind of pull myself out of that bit by bit, and but not like I've done anything that you know that important or anything like that. I feel like it's for me it's special because it's like graffiti's meant so much to me in my life, and it's been such an inspiration, but also like art as well, you know. And it's sort of weird. Like I get into fine art. I have really got into it, and then I go and see like a lot of fine art. Um, you know, now that I'm older, or even when I went to art school, I always really loved it and really got into it, and I kind of feel happy that you know since say COVID. Or even before COVID, I sort of started transitioning more into making little bodies of work and then using more traditional materials and you know art stuff. And yeah, so I don't know where I'm going with this, but I guess what I was going to get at, what I was actually going to get at is that fine art though seems so closed, like in that you know it's a sort of a very it's kind of elite. And I mean, and in a way, graffiti is kind of more open, and anyone can sort of come in and do graffiti. But at the same time, not anyone can come and do graffiti because, or do even street art or whatever, because it isn't like just a massive open door. But in some ways, it is a bit of an open door, and people come in. It's like a revolving door. People come in, they leave, they come back again. But it's just strange because when I was getting into fine art, I was like, oh, but I want to take that more into graffiti. And I don't know, maybe I did a bit here and there, and also didn't as well. Like because sometimes I just went back to straight stuff that I was doing prior. But I was always trying to marry fine art and graffiti, and not that that's anything new. I mean, Ramalzi did something amazing with that, with all his fashion stuff and his really intense artworks. But I don't know. I feel like some of the work I was doing in, say, the 2000s, early 2000s, and then up to maybe, and then right after 2014, 15, I felt like it was something special. And sometimes I feel like a bit of a dickhead because I'm like, oh, what makes me so special? Why should I, feel like I've done anything for, whatever. But I guess it's meant a lot to me, and I hope it has been inspirational to people. And you kind of, you get people who obviously say, yeah, that really influenced me, or guys who say, I remember when you were getting up, back in the day or whatever. And so all these little adventures and things that you luckily survived, what I mean, that you didn't get fucking, killed or something. I've hopefully added up to something half interesting. But anyway, I started off about schizophrenia in my dad, and what I wanted to say is that eventually, when I got schizophrenia myself, as I was sort of recovering, which took a long time, I wanted to bring that into the artwork, into my graffiti. I wanted to bring all that sort of stuff together. I didn't want to sort of hide it. I always felt like I was trying to hide something, because you feel kind of like there's a lot of stigma, and it's mainly, the stigma is not even other people; it's more yourself that has the main stigma. Like you feel like, oh, I know, what will people think of me, or whatever. And I guess not that I wasted a lot of time worrying about that, because I was still doing it anyway, even though I could have. I mean, I was kind of like doing a sort of a spiral of like, it was just going further in until the spiral got smaller and smaller and smaller until it was like, that's it. It's all come together into one sort of thing, and that's maybe happened, and that sort of happens as you get older anyway, because you kind of find your own voice and your own way of doing things. But yeah, so I wanted to bring that all together, but then I was like, I can't really say that what I'm doing is particularly um, mentally deranged or anything, because like I'm kind of recovered anyway. So, but I like to bring that sort of in, like the line work and stuff like that, but that, if you look at some classic like drawings by some schizophrenic patients, some of the illustrations of energy and like the way they use line and the way there'll be a story. I mean, I don't really use that sort of thing. I'm not really doing a narrative, but I try and bring those lines, and especially like a lot of like chaotic kind of lines. And I don't know, I feel like it's like bending the sort of space um, in in the picture plane. But whether or not it's just, whether or not I'm just seeing things, like you never quite know. And I'm not really that worried about it, because I quite like them. I quite like, and I move around. Like I like to I like to say, well, here's something that I would say is more inspired by mental illness, and here's something that's inspired by maybe like traditional drawing and modernism, and modernist styles of drawing, whether it's like impressionist sort of styles, or not so much like dots or anything like that, but just like a sketchy kind of style that maybe was developed, after traditional, because I've never really done a full traditional kind of like, you can tell by the way I draw, it's not like a fully traditional kind of way of drawing, but I mean, I can draw from life. And so it's very eclectic, and I feel like that kind of captures maybe states of mind, because sometimes I can feel really sharp, and I feel like, oh yeah, I want to do something really like, super sleek, and I want to go slick. And then sometimes I just feel like I don't want to do that. I just feel like, oh, I want to feel like there's no boundaries, there's no edges, there's nothing really, like I can just go into an abstract space. So I mean, Gerhard Richter did that kind of stuff. I used to love Gerhard Richter's stuff, because he would do the kind of glitchy kind of analog photographic stuff, and then he would do the big glitchy kind of big abstract paintings, that all looked like kind of, they looked very they looked like the big abstract paintings looked like sort of like static, like on a television, but they were kind of like, they had this weird sort of depth and 2D 3D thing happening, which is very which I really loved. And then I loved his paintings because there was just like this, yeah, this the noise that would come in from analog. Maybe it was like somebody copied from a newspaper print, or maybe he just, I don't know whether he took it from a video, or but some of those, not all of them, but some of them will have a very um, analog space. And yeah, but that's the thing, I guess. If you're my age, like I know I'm gonna be like 50 in December, you're kind of like, you've seen the analog world, like when you had, like when I was a kid, we had like a black and white TV, because we were just that was that poor. And um and and then you see all the digital stuff, the HD, and then you see dudes like Philippe Pantone. And I always get a real bit of a Woody over Philippe Pantone. I'm always like, oh, I love his stuff, and I really do, because it's so like kind of alien, but at the same time, like kind of where we would have wanted to be when digital started happening. And people will say, oh, that's just design or whatever, but it's like the way he bends space, and the way I mean, it's not design. It's like it's ephemeral. You know what I mean? And even though it's so kind of like based on um, the science of how colors interact sometimes, or the way um, his mobile kind of pieces interact, the way you can move them, the manipulable works. Like that's just like reality bending stuff. But I get sort of caught up in the whole like noisy, the noise of like like Hank Shockley with Public Enemy or whatever, like the noise in the music, the noise in um, the mind. You know. Anyway, I could talk about this all night, and I'll probably send everyone to sleep. But anyway, good night then. But yeah, so I mean, it's just like a really weird journey, your life, and then people think, oh, um, because graffiti is so egotistical, especially when you're doing illegals, because you're like, you know, you've got to be putting yourself out there, and you got to be. But I don't know, like I don't want to do illegal graffiti, and I haven't wanted to do that since 2007, because I'm like, I just felt like I was just becoming so selfish. I feel like the most selfish person ever, and I don't know. I feel like I had always, like blow my own trumpet, and I guess I'm doing that right now. But it's not like I have anything to prove. Like it's like I don't really have any real connection really to fine art at all. I mean, I've had training in it. I mean, yeah, I have training. That's something, but I don't have any like gallery or anything like that. I exhibit, but very rarely, and not really in like commercial galleries or any sort of like high end galleries. Well, I don't really get any grants. I don't really apply for grants. Not really that interested. I do make things, but it's kind of like that. Um, it just goes into storage, and that's it. And I don't really make any money out of it. I lose money making art, and I have lost money for like a long time. And I don't really care, because it's like I like doing it. And same with graffiti. Like I've been paying for paint for so long, and I don't really steal anything. I don't do any crime. It's pretty boring, but um, I'm more interested in like being able to travel and go to countries, where they might not let me in if I was like a criminal or had a criminal history, and I'm being lucky because when I was younger, I did get charged when I was younger, but then I had my charges wiped when I was 18, and I was like, I'm gonna like get out of the heavy train, but not that I did that many trains anyway, but I'm gonna get out of that heavy culture, and I'm gonna just go and do street bombing, because like that was more like a relaxing thing. And I always seen, like, go around places where my dad went. I mean, my dad used to walk around, and in the city and around Darlinghurst and around all these places, Cross and this and that, where all these different places I'd walk around, and I just love that sort of relaxation. I thought street bombing back, when I was doing it, when I was getting right into it after I stopped train bombing, was just like the most chill sort of like fun. And you're going to clubs, and you kind of like, I don't know, just wandering around, like um, but you feel like you had this sort of purpose, and you feel like you're getting your name up a bit, and you're sort of part of that culture. Like, even though you're not like trying to like hit trains. I don't know. That was just so stressful, really. Um, and especially battles and stuff like that. I just got a bit sick of it. I was just like far out. Like, this is I didn't really think that I'd get that heavily into that sort of stuff. And it always, and everyone always says, like, I mean, you end up getting hated anyway. People will always shit on you for whatever crew you've been in or whatever. I mean, especially if it's not a popular crew. Or, I mean, I can totally understand some of these crews. I mean, I can understand like why things turned out the way they did because of just some of the kind of um, just the general kind of bad shit that people got into. And yeah, but it makes you, I mean, it makes me happy to think that at least I had a go, you know what I mean? And that's good. But yeah, and I'm going to sign out. See ya.